Hello everyone, and welcome to our day 2 of our brush pen crash course here in the Lovely Loops calligraphy community. So we are so glad that you are all here. Some of you might have been with us yesterday for day 1. Some of you might just be joining us today for day 2. We will do a quick recap of what we talked about yesterday. But we also just wanted to introduce ourselves again. So I'm Jordan, I'm Jillian, and we are Lovely Loops. And just in case you're new around here and you don't know us yet, we teach calligraphy and lettering online mostly. We've taught a bunch of in-person workshops and learned so much about our students, so now we teach mainly online courses, and we're really excited that you're here. Yes, and we are also twin sisters, so sometimes during the video when we flip the camera around and we're showing our hands, it can be hard to tell who's who. But we are both here in the room for Brush Pen Crash Course Day 2. So hello to everyone who is joining. So if you're watching live, you'll know that it's live. If it says live in the top left corner in red, you can also watch the replay of these videos anytime because we record them and we will post them for you. So if you have to leave during the video, that is totally okay. You can come back and watch the rest of it whenever you have time. So hi everyone that is joining from all over the world. We're so happy that you guys are here. Yay! Okay, so just a quick review of what we talked about yesterday because we had lots of great discussion about it. We talked about the characteristics of calligraphy and how brush pens are different from other calligraphy tools. So since this whole crash course is about brush pens, we just wanted to give you a little comparison in case you're familiar with other types of calligraphy tools. We talked about the #1 mistake to avoid when using brush pens, which is using the wrong paper, and we have a whole supply guide that we'll give you tomorrow with all the paper suggestions. And then we also filled out this neat little chart of brush pen characteristics, so the tip type, springiness, ink type, size, and duality. So thank you everyone who joined yesterday, and if you haven't watched it, you can always rewatch the replay. And today we're talking about the benefits and challenges of using brush pens. So we have lots of great information for you to learn today. Yes, and once again, today we will be going through the worksheets that we emailed you.
Oh, yes.
And if you signed up through the lovelyloops.com/crash course link, you should be getting emails every day with the worksheets, and so you can print them out to follow along. You could also just use a blank piece of paper if you don't have these printed out, but we will be going through these today.
Yes.
And we are filling in the spaces.
Yep.
And so we're going to get started with the first question on today's worksheet. So for this question, we're not going to be showing anything in our hands. We just want to have this to be more of a discussion. So again, hello to everyone that is joining. Hi. So before we even get started with the first question, which is what are some benefits of learning calligraphy and lettering, we just wanted to take a step back and think about why are we here in this group? So you probably joined this group and you probably joined this crash course because you've seen brush lettering online and maybe you saw our video that said brush pen crash course written in brush pens and maybe you were interested in learning about them. But before we talk about about why they're so good for using for calligraphy, we wanted to discuss why we enjoy it and why lots of you do. So we came up with a list of reasons, of some benefits and some reasons why you might decide to start learning brush calligraphy or brush lettering. And so feel free to put your answer in the comments if you'd like, but we're going to go through a little list that we put together. Yeah, so one of our favorite reasons and one of the reasons that we started doing calligraphy is that it's just a way that you can be really creative. So especially as an adult, a lot of times as an adult there's not many opportunities to show your creative side and do something maybe artistic, especially if your everyday job or whatever your role is on a daily basis doesn't include that. So I know personally we would always come home from our jobs and use lettering as a way to just be creative, something that we couldn't do on a daily basis. Yes. So before we feel so lucky that we do this as a full-time business now. Before that, Jordan was an engineer and I was a data analyst. So those are really data heavy jobs, and I'm sure lots of you have jobs that are either really data heavy or you're doing something I know there's lots of nurses or something that takes a lot of focus and a lot of brain power, or even just physical power. But so being able to do something creative is just a really great way to relax and explore your artistic side.
Yeah, so it's also really relaxing, like Jillian just said. It can be so relaxing to just get out your supplies, especially if you're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Like if you're not pressuring yourself to be perfect, or if you're not like making something for someone. If you're just doing it for the sake of doing it, it can be really relaxing and therapeutic and stress relieving. It's also nice to just do something with your hands, writing with a pen and paper instead of just typing on a computer, so making something physical in a digital world.
Yeah, and something that you just kind of mentioned was you could do it for fun and for relaxation, but you can also you can do calligraphy and lettering as a way to make things for people. So that was one of the first things that we always did, was we would practice our lettering, and a great way to practice is by making a gift for someone. And eventually people started wanting to pay us for our work, which is another great reason that you might want to learn brush calligraphy, is that it's a very rare skill to have, even though it might seem like you're on Instagram and everyone is doing brush lettering and everyone's so good at it, but in reality, if you think about how many people in the world actually know how to do this kind of calligraphy and lettering, even if you're just a beginner, then you have skills that most people in the world do not have. So that's a great opportunity to kind of stand out and make unique gifts and things, but also a great way to earn money.
Yeah, and also save money. One thing that we both did was we addressed our own wedding invitations and making our own wedding signage, and that kind of thing can start to add up if you hire someone to do it. Of course, if you hire a professional, you know that it's going to look absolutely perfect, but doing it yourself after you've learned it for a few months or however long you have to practice, it just adds such a personal touch, and doing it yourself saves so much money.
Exactly. Let's see, what are the reasons? And I love the reasons that we see coming in the comments. It's kind of hard for us to see right now, but we'll go back to those. So another thing that I think is really fun, and I know lots of you in the group here do bullet journaling, but using lettering is a great way to just make your everyday life more fun and look prettier. And so whether you have a bullet journal or just a regular planner that you like to write in, or even like home organization, like organizing your spices, you could do some calligraphy on the labels and things like that. And yeah, so I want to create something I can be proud of. That is a huge reason. And even if your motivation for learning is just so that you can show off on Instagram, I still think that's like a really good motivation to learn something new, because you do have a skill that no one else has. But yeah, being able to create something that you're proud of to hang on your wall or to give to someone or to sell.
Yeah, and just to prove to yourself that you can do it. I know that was another big reason that we started really learning this skill, is because we've always been like artistic and loved doing arts and crafts when we were younger, and we always loved lettering, like creative styles of lettering in school and everything. And then so in the last couple of years, when we've seen this beautiful work on Pinterest and Instagram, we think to ourselves, well, if they can do it, why can't I? I just need to put it in the practice and learn how to do it, and then I'll be proud of myself once I can do it.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Can you guys still hear and see us? Someone said that the video isn't playing anymore, but I think we're back. Okay. Just let us know if you can't hear us. Okay, what else? Oh yeah, so one other thing that is kind of like a specific situation where you might take the time to decide to learn calligraphy is if you have like a period of time in your life where you are not as busy as normal. So whether you're a college student and you're on winter break, or maybe you're recovering from surgery and you have a few weeks at home, or maybe even you're on maternity leave, you have some time to learn something new. I think calligraphy is really great because even though it can take a really long time, I mean, we've been studying it for 3 years, you can learn it in a relatively short amount of time compared to some other things like that are way more complex to learn.
Yeah, we've had so many successful students over just 6 weeks learn how to do brush lettering. Yes. So many amazing reasons. Let's see if we had any more on our list, or if you guys can come with anything else. So something that might not seem like a benefit, but it is really a benefit, is doing something that is a challenge in a world of instant gratification. So many things that we do and so many apps that we have on our phone make our life so much easier, which is great, save us time, but when was the last time you really took the time to learn something new and put in the time and the work and the energy and the practice, and all of that leads up to something that you can really truly be proud of, and being proud of your work is something that we've mentioned so many times during this discussion so far.
Yes. Oh, that's a good reason. So Jane said a while ago, I'm just trying to catch up on the comments here on my computer, but Jane said that finally using my brush pens instead of collecting them. So I can definitely relate. I know at the beginning at first I had no idea what kind of supplies to use, and then I learned about all the different kinds of brush pens and bought so many of them, and they just kind of sat there because I didn't really know how to...
Or you used them all at once, and then you found some that you liked, and then you had all these brush pens, and then I have so many right now that I don't use that often, and so that's a great reason. It's just getting them out. What is it? Use it or lose it? Is that?
Yeah. Jane did a use it or lose it supply challenge. Yeah, that's so fun to follow. Okay. Envelopes to Etsy clients. That's a really good one. So you can apply calligraphy to if you do another type of art, or even just another business, even if it's not related to art. You can apply calligraphy to make a special touch anywhere for anything really. Okay, let's see. I'm just kind of skimming through to see if there's any other comments. If you're a stay-at-home mom, you might need some time to put the kids somewhere and then go have some me time on your own to be able to do something for yourself. Yeah, and making things for people is always so special.
Yeah, Christmas is coming up.
Think of all the money you can save by making personalized gifts.
And cards. I don't think I have bought...
Miamisburg.
I don't think I have bought a greeting card in the last 3 years because I can always just make it, and that puts a personal touch and also saves me $4 every time I have to give someone a greeting card.
Yeah. So I think, and this is just to summarize all of this, at the end of the day, it's really just learning calligraphy has so many benefits. It's really an investment in yourself, whether it's because you're actually earning money from your skills, or you're just investing in your personal growth and your mental health by doing something artistic and creative.
Yeah, any of these reasons is enough, even if it's just one. Even if it's just to have a hobby, that's enough.
Oh yeah, or if you're retired. Yeah, we've had a lot of students in our online courses who are retired, and now they finally have time to do something that they enjoy. Exactly. Okay, so we are actually going to switch back to filling out these worksheets on the other view of the camera. So we're going to go get set up over there.
I'm going to flip the camera around and then set it up over here. So give me a second.
Okay, so of all of the things that we just spent time talking about, you can feel free to fill in your worksheet whatever reason resonated with you the most of the benefits of learning calligraphy. It's different for everyone, and you might even have a reason for learning calligraphy that you don't want to share, or that is specific to your situation, and that's great. So there's obviously so many reasons why you may want to learn calligraphy, but there can be some things holding you back. And we actually did a survey asking what your biggest struggle, if you have used brush pens before, what the biggest struggle was. So I'm going to share the results of that survey. And thank you for everyone who answered. We had over 250 people, I think almost 300 people respond. I'm just grabbing the chart right now. So for specifically the struggles of using brush pens, so we talked all about brush pens yesterday, and we will be covering brush pen brands tomorrow. These were the results of the survey. So the number one struggle, and this was 35%, if you're into the numbers, 35% of the responses had something to do with the contrast and pressure control. So that is definitely a big challenge of using brush pens for lots of reasons. The second response was, let's see here, with 16% of people, was shaky upstrokes. So that's kind of related to pressure control, but mostly about just the upstrokes, so the thin strokes. And we could totally relate. Shaky upstrokes were a huge struggle at the beginning. And lots of this is going to be fixed with muscle memory and practice. And we'll talk a little bit about how you can address some of these challenges. Number 3, with a little over 15%, was not knowing what supplies to use. So hopefully this crash course is going to help you out. Like we said before, we have a supply guide with brush pen brands and paper that we'll send out tomorrow, and tomorrow we'll also be focusing on brush pen brands. So knowing what supplies to use, even what we talked about yesterday of knowing what paper to use, is going to really help, because it can be really frustrating when you have absolutely no idea where to start and you don't even know like what pen to use. Also, really quick note on this, someone asked yesterday we remember how we said that watercolor paper is not good for brush pens because it's rough, and someone was asking if it's okay to use bristle brush pens on watercolor paper, so if it's like a paintbrush, and that is fine, that won't ruin the tip. It's just if you have a felt tip brush pen, then you shouldn't be using watercolor paper or any rough paper. Okay, number 4, with 13% of people responding that this was the biggest struggle, was transitioning. So transitioning from thick to thin. So like if you're going from a thick stroke to a thin stroke or thin to thick, that is a very difficult thing to learn. We actually spend, I don't know, like a whole week on that in our brush lettering bootcamp course because it's such an important topic, but also such a difficult one. Number 5 was, this was 9.1% of people had like an other reason, and I'll talk about that in a second. But 6 was 7% of people said that their biggest struggle was consistency. So whether that was consistent practice or consistent thick strokes and consistent thin strokes. Then the last category was, with almost 4% of people saying that they were left-handed and that was holding them back. So there are lots of things that lefties can do to make brush lettering easier. I know, for example, smudging the ink is one of the struggles. But don't worry if you're left-handed, there are lots of lefties out there who are very successful brush lettering artists, and we have some tips that can help you as well. The other category was, there was just lots of different things that didn't fall into these categories that had to do with like the grip on the pen, the angles, and like knowing what to practice, having time to practice, and just a hodgepodge of other reasons. Lefties are more creative, says Deb. That is great because brush lettering and creativity go very well together. So you might even have an advantage if you're a lefty. So those were the top 7 reasons based on our results. Here it is in a pie chart if you want to see that. I have my answer key over here. But we also came up with just a couple more reasons that we usually find as challenges that come back to not only using brush pens just in general, but using them for lettering. And some of these are more of a mental thing, but like I'll list them over here. So some other struggles are just worrying or being, is inconfident a word? Unconfident? I'll just say not confident. Not being confident that you're good enough or that other people are better than you and that you're never going to get to that point, which is totally not true. I know on Instagram it's really, really hard not to compare yourself, or even in this Facebook group, to compare where you are to where other people are in their lettering journey. And we really appreciate when we see in our Facebook group that people are using each other as inspiration rather than intimidation. So kind of related is being frustrated. Frustrated that you're not improving, frustrated that you don't know how to improve. That's a big thing. So
we're not, we teach, we didn't study education in college, but we kind of learned about, if anyone's a teacher in here, you may know what I'm talking about, the whole spectrum of when you start off with something, then you don't really know that you're not good at it, but then as you learn more, then you start to realize, like, wow, there's so much I don't know. Unconscious incompetence, what is it? Conscious incompetence. So the second stage is conscious incompetence, which means I know that I'm not good, but I don't really know yet how to improve. Then eventually you get to a point of conscious competence, which means that you know that what you're doing is right, and then eventually unconscious competence is being a natural, and that's where like the muscle memory comes in. So eventually you get to a point where it's second nature. But at the beginning, you can have some quick wins really quick or really soon, like for example, knowing what supplies to use. You can check that off the list pretty quick just by taking this crash course. But some of the more difficult things take some time, and so that's where the frustration comes in. But just remember that there's lots of skills that you can't learn overnight, and calligraphy is definitely one of them. Being a perfectionist can hold you back in lots of things in life, but in brush calligraphy at the beginning, being a perfectionist can be really tricky because, like, going back to shaky upstrokes, that is not a natural thing for you unless you're like a painter or something. It's not really natural to do some of the things that we do in brush calligraphy. And so if you're just so held back by the fact that the first time you do it, it's not perfect, I can tell you that it's probably not going to be perfect the first time or the first 10 times or even the first 100 times that you do it, because it takes time and it takes practice. But once you work hard and try not to let the perfectionism get in your way, which I know is easier said than done. But
yeah, there was a really good comment. As long as you are trying, you will always be ahead of all those that are not.
I love that. That's great. And Trish also said, so thank you, Jane. And Trish said, where you are is your entry point. People will always be farther along as you, or not as far as you in life. Yeah, that's true. So in anything, whether it's calligraphy, whether it's just your stage in life, if you're married, or just anything in life, there's always going to be people who are at different stages, and the best thing to do is to learn from each other rather than to compare yourself and get down on that. Doing it alone can be a really big challenge, and luckily, if you're watching this video, then you have us and you have this community. So when we first started, it was really hard to learn. Even though Jordan and I had each other, we still didn't have a whole group of people who knew what they were doing along with us until we started meeting people on Instagram. But those are lots of the reasons that can maybe hold people back from starting to learn. So if you understand what the benefits of learning brush calligraphy are, but maybe some of these things are holding you back, we totally understand. We've experienced every single one of these on the list. So I'm going to go back to a positive note now and talk about what makes brush pens specifically great for calligraphy. And let's see here. Okay, so I put together a little list, but you can also throw some out if you do use brush pens and there's things that you like about them. So I think one of the biggest advantages, especially when you're first starting out, is that it's a quick setup, in that if you are familiar with the pointed pen or dip pen like we talked about yesterday, if you're doing pointed pen calligraphy, then you have to like prep the nib and get out the ink and mix the ink, and then at the end you have to like put everything away and make sure you don't spill the ink and clean off the nib and store everything. But for brush pens, all you do is uncap it and then you're ready to go, and now you're done. So I think for me that was like a huge thing at the beginning of why I thought it was so cool that I could just do something really quick. And then kind of on a related note is the portability, which we mentioned yesterday, but it's so much easier if you travel a lot.
or even like the lack of the mess if you have kids. But if you travel a lot, it's a lot easier to bring something like a brush pen than like watercolors or pen and ink. Let's see, what else is on my list? Oh, I saw someone just mention faux calligraphy, and actually I wanted to talk about how it's quicker than faux calligraphy. So if you're following us on Instagram, you may have seen we posted a time-lapse comparison of writing the same quote. One side was faux calligraphy, and if you're not familiar, faux calligraphy would be like if this was the F, then you would have to go back in and add the shading to make it look like calligraphy. So we did a time-lapse comparison of faux calligraphy versus brush calligraphy, and brush calligraphy just took so much less time. I think it was like, it took almost 3 times the amount of time to do the faux calligraphy one. So many of you have taken our faux calligraphy course, and so if you're interested in learning something that might save you a little bit of time, brush lettering is a great thing to learn. I love the colors, sizes, and special effects of brush pens, and we're going to talk about special effects towards the end. But there's so many different, as we talked about yesterday, so many different colors and sizes and brands, and so many opportunity for brush pens. And I know, like, for point and pen, there's lots of different kinds of ink, and for other types of writing utensils, there's lots of colors, but I just think it's really great how many companies are producing brush pens that are so much fun to use. Yeah, the versatility of it, the forgiveness of that it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's see. Yeah, they're very versatile. So kind of related to special effects is that the color is buildable. So if you, well, it depends on what brush pen you're using, but for example, if I write with pink and then I write on top of it, you can see like that it's darker here, so the color can build on itself, unlike ink that you would use, and that can be really good for some of the special effects that we'll talk about. And let's see, the other great thing is the relative inexpensive startup cost. So you, unlike a lot of hobbies that require lots of expensive gear or a membership, for doing brush lettering, all you need is a brush pen and smooth paper. So you can get a single brush pen for like $3 and a pack of paper for $12. So it's fairly inexpensive to get started with brush lettering, which I think is really great. Okay, also one other thing, and I'll just say a couple more reasons, but you're probably more familiar with writing with like a marker than you are with maybe using a paintbrush or a pointed pen. So if you're interested in lettering, brush pens are a pretty, like the gap between writing with a Crayola marker versus writing with a brush pen. There are lots of things that are different, but at least it's not as much of a difference as going from like pencil to watercolor. And let's see what else. But the other great thing about this is you can use the concepts that you learn for brush pen lettering and apply it to things like watercolor lettering that are a little bit more complex, but if you learn it with a brush pen, then you can apply it later on. Okay, so for what kinds of brush pens are best for starting to learn brush calligraphy? So Jordan and I have come up with our own philosophy on this that others may think is controversial, but we believe that the best kind of brush pen to start learning brush lettering with,
and we're not going to give you like a specific pen or a specific brand.
Yes, we are talking about large brush pens. So if you, large tip brush pens. So by large, like we talked about yesterday, I mean something like a Tombow rather than something small like a Fudenosuke. So it's great if you have started learning with a small tip pen, but we believe that the best way is with a large tip pen. So a few reasons for this. Number one, it's easier to see your mistakes. Yes, and anyone who has taken our brush lettering bootcamp course can probably, even if at the beginning it was really frustrating to use a large tip brush pen, even if we made you probably appreciate it now, hopefully. At least that's the feedback we've gotten. So it's easier to see the mistakes. So if you write like the letter A at this scale, and then compare that to writing it with a really small tip, it's just really hard to see like the minute details of something this small. So having like a blown up size of it is much easier to tell where to improve. And a lot of times the small details are what's going to make the biggest difference. Okay, number 2 is that they are more flexible than small tip brush pens in general. And that makes it harder to learn on at first, but once you learn how to write with something as flexible as a Tombow or something even more flexible, then you can apply what you've learned to the ones that aren't as flexible, like the Zig Brushable, and it's just so much easier than going the opposite way. So basically our thinking is, if you're going to spend the time to really learn how to use a brush pen, then you might as well learn on the thing that's the hardest, so something large tipped and something that's flexible, so that you can apply it, rather than learning on something easy that gives you a false sense of security. Because then if you learn on a small tip brush pen, then you try large tip, then it can be really frustrating and you might feel like you lost all your progress or not be able to do it at all. Yeah, exactly what Rebecca said, that shrinking down is a lot easier than getting larger. So going from this to this is going to be a way easier transition than going from this to this. Oh, actually, we pulled a quote from someone who took Brush Lettering Bootcamp and said, Brush Lettering Bootcamp, by the way, is our online course that's 6 weeks. We're actually reopening enrollment for it tomorrow. We'll give you more details. But someone said, it was incredibly insightful on your part to have beginners start with the large brush markers in general. Using the small ones feels easy peasy now. So that's exactly how we wanted that to happen. Okay, anything else about what kind of brush pens are best? So large tip for these reasons. And yeah, exactly. You guys have all got it. Okay, now we're going to talk about special effects that can be created with brush pens. So remember I said up here, one of the things that I love about brush pens is that you can do special effects. So first I'm going to list them and then I'm going to show them how you can do it. So we have blending, and there are actually lots of, well, 3 main ways that I can think of off the top of my head that you can do blending with brush pens. There are metallic brush pens, which are amazing. You can combine them with other, let's just say, white accents with gel pens, and then shadows. So here, I think maybe if I actually start showing you first, it'll make more sense. So the first one was blending. So one way that you can blend is by taking this is contact paper. So I'm not writing on my tabletop, it's contact paper. So a way that you can blend 2 colors is by taking a darker color and putting the ink down somewhere like a piece of plastic or contact paper. And then taking a lighter color, like this pink one, and I'm just going to color, so just so you can see what this pink one looks like first. Now I'm going to color in here and write with it. Ooh, and now we're going from a pretty bluish purple to that pink, and it's just a smooth blend from here. So the longer that I put this pen in the blue ink, then the bluer it would be at the front and the longer it would take to go back to pink. But now you can see that this is back to the original start color. So that's one way to blend. Another way that I really like is doing a vertical blend. I don't know why I always do this in capital letters, but because of what we mentioned before about how the brush pens or the color is buildable, you can do a vertical blend where you write something and then start from one side, like the top or the bottom, and trace over what you've written to darken it and kind of feather it out at the bottom so that you're not getting such a harsh transition between, I don't know how well you can see this in the lighting, but going back over it to darken it up at the top. And if you happen to have a colorless blender, which I'll show you in a second, then you can blend even more. So a colorless blender, this is the Tombow colorless blender, looks like this. It's basically a clear marker, and then you can use it to blend the colors together. I'm actually kind of breaking a rule and not using grate paper right here, but if you were using something like marker paper, then this would work a lot better. Okay, so there is an idea for blending. Oh, that's a great question. So what's the best paper to use when you're doing a vertical blend? So I find that using marker paper or tracing paper works really well. Actually, Jordan, can you grab me a piece of marker paper? Because of how smooth it is, and the ink doesn't absorb as quickly into the paper, so it kind of sits on top. So let me show you the difference here. So marker paper, just a reminder, you can see through it a little bit. So if I were to do, and it also works better if you work in smaller sections, so let's just do this B first. So first I write the B, and then I'm gonna go back over a section, and this is where it gets easier with the marker paper, is the blending part of it, because the ink is still wet, it hasn't fully absorbed, and then you can blend each section. So you can go down as far as you want, and you can build on top of itself multiple times. It might start, if you do too many layers, then it might kind of rip through the paper. But this is going to be, it takes a while, especially if you do some of the other types of blending. But that's one idea. Another thing that you could do, and a few people in this group are really good at blending, is you could either write a word in gray first, or do something like this where you have the word written and then use tracing paper on top, and then take different colors and trace over it. I know I'm going kind of quick, but trace over it, and then you can blend them in the middle, like this. So this takes a ton of patience. I have so much respect for the people who do this all the time on Instagram. I know Merdula has been doing lots of really neat blended effects, but I'm sure there are more ways to do this than just this, but here's just an easy way to make really, really interesting looking pieces. So this definitely wouldn't be able to happen with this easily, or I don't know, at all, with pointed pen, but using brush pens is great. So related to what we talked about yesterday, there are certain types that work better for blending than others, and using something that's water-based, like these Tombows, is going to work a lot better than something that's pigment, like the brushables. If you use the brushables on something like marker paper, or something that's super duper smooth, like this, then it might be possible to blend before the ink completely dries. But I don't know if you follow us on Instagram, we did an experiment last week showing you how certain, well, I guess I can show you right now. So if I draw a little swatch right here with a water-based pen, and then a pigment one, this is the Zig brushable. I'm just going to draw a little swatch. Then if I take my colorless blender, if I wait a second for this to dry, if I take this colorless blender and blend out, you can see how easily this is blending. Now if I go down to my pigment one, then you can see it's not really blending at all. The only parts that are kind of blending are the parts that haven't really dried yet, but if I waited for this to completely dry, then it wouldn't work at all. So that's where it becomes important to talk about the characteristics that we discussed yesterday with the water-based versus pigment. And actually someone mentioned just a few minutes ago about if you do use water-based pens or something that's not light fast like the brushables. Where did I put that? Like the brushables. So the brushables are pigment and acid-free, or light fast and waterproof and fade-proof. So that basically means if you were to leave this out in the sun for a while, like, I don't know. Yeah, leave the piece of paper that you wrote on out in the sun for like even like a week, you can see a difference. Then the light fast fade proof one will look exactly the same, and what you drew with the dye based water based one like the Tombow would fade. So just be careful about that. Thank you to whoever brought that up before. But the point here was blending is possible with brush pens, certain kind of brush pens, and works best on smooth paper. I think that looks kind of cool. Okay, we're going to keep going. So the next special effect was metallic, because there are some really great metallic brush pens. This is one of my absolute favorites, the Zig Fudabiori Metallic. So just to show you what it looks like here, it just is so juicy and looks amazing on black paper. I'm just going to write metal. And the metallic ones, so just a really minute detail, but the Zig Fudabiori non-metallic ones are water-based, and the metallic ones are pigment. So even though these are the same brand, the metallic ones are pigment, and these won't fade. So look at that. Isn't that so pretty? It shows up so well on the black paper. And they have lots of different colors. So I think these are probably my favorite metallic ones. If you've tried other metallics, then feel free to put them in the comments to share with everyone else. Okay, another cool thing that you can do that works well, especially with large tip brush pens, is adding some patterns with a white gel pen. So you may have seen people do this and wonder how. So adding patterns and highlights with a gel pen, and sometimes this doesn't work that well on this paper. We'll see. Oh, the black paper was, Jordan, is this Recollections?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is cardstock, which I know we said yesterday not to write on cardstock with brush pens. A couple of things about that. So if you're doing a project and you're not just like practicing every day on rough paper, then it's fine. And I only really use metallic ones on black paper for special projects anyway. So I've used this one a lot on black paper, and it hasn't really frayed too much. But definitely don't practice on black paper. I mean, cardstock. But yeah, this is from Michael's Recollections cardstock. Okay, so if you have a white pen like this Jelly Roll, this is the medium tip one, you can add some highlights and embellishments on your lettering. So I'm not sure how well this is going to show up. Might actually work better on different paper. Yeah, so sometimes on the marker paper, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to work as well. But yeah, you can add really cool, awesome looking patterns that really make your letters pop. Even just something as simple as a straight line down the middle of the thick part with the white pen can just make it look pretty cool. Yeah, it might not be showing up that well on camera, but hopefully it can kind of see. Okay, one other thing was, actually two more things. So you can add other accents with pens, like if you have a Micron or these Tombow drawing pens, you can, if you outline them, it can look really neat and make them look almost 3D. So using the large tip pens with something thin like this to outline it is great. If you had a small tip brush pen, then you might not be able to do something like this as easily. And then one other thing was creating shadows. So you can create depth by using, this is a gray brush pen, it's a Tombow, and if you trace the sides of the letters, then you can make it look like there's a shadow. Kind of like this. So those are some of the things that I like to use brush pens for that are more of like a illustrative or special effect, as we've been calling it, just to make it look a little bit different than what you could do with other tools. So hopefully that was helpful. So white gel pens you can get, I got mine from Marker Supply. I get this exact one from Marker Supply. So if you're in the US, actually they ship elsewhere. Jordan will put the link. Marker Supply has these white gel pens. I'm having trouble coming up with creative ways to fill this now that I'm live. But there's lots of things that you can do with this. So, okay, we're gonna, so that was the ones that I wanted to go over for this. So just to kind of review what we've talked about, we talked about benefits and challenges of learning calligraphy, and hopefully the challenges part, this pie chart made you realize that your struggles, like you are not alone in this. There's lots of people who have trouble with this kind of stuff, and that's because brush lettering is not easy. There's lots that you'll need to learn if you're interested in learning how to use brush pens for lettering, but there are lots of things that make brush pens great for calligraphy, like we talked about today, including the special things you can do with it. So if you're interested in learning brush lettering, we do recommend using a large tip brush pen to start for the reasons that we mentioned. And also, as we mentioned, we will be opening enrollment for our online course tomorrow. But I'm going to go back to our faces here. All right. Okay. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that wonderful demonstration by Jillian. We are going to quickly talk about what we're going to be doing tomorrow. Okay, so tomorrow's worksheet, we are going to be filling out another chart. So just like we did yesterday, except this chart is going to have specific brush pen brands. And then for each brand, we're going to be comparing the characteristics that we talked about yesterday. So the size, ink type, flexibility, other notes. And there are 5 pens on this list that we're going into a lot of detail tomorrow. The pens are Tombow Dual Brush, Zig Brushables, Zig Fudobiori, Pentel Sign Pens, and Marvy Color In Pens. So if these names sound weird to you right now, you will learn a lot more about them tomorrow. We showed some of them yesterday. And one thing that all of these pens have in common is that they are part of our brush pen set that is sold at Marker Supply that 2 of you will be winning as a part of the giveaway at the end of this week. So if you are watching this video, then you will already be eligible to be in this giveaway, but we have 2 brush pen sets that include the pens. Yeah, so this one is the Jordan set. Yeah, and I have one that I designed too that I don't think we have here. So this has my custom artwork on the front, and Jillian's has her artwork on the front in her signature style, and all the brush pens that we just said are in the pouch. So there are 10 pens in here. In the Jordan set, it's blue and green colors because that's my favorite color. And Jillian's has pink and purple. Yeah, so 2 of you will be winning that set. And actually, Melissa posted in the group last week, I think, related to what we were talking about, the great things about brush pens being portable are that whenever she goes on a trip, she just can throw this in her bag rather than having to like search for a bunch of supplies to bring. So we're really excited to gift 2 of these sets to, or 1 of these sets to 2 of you, and you can choose which of the 2 options you want. Yay! Okay, so tomorrow we'll be talking about brush pen brands, and we'll also give you some information on how to sign up for, if you're interested in learning more, how to sign up for our brush lettering bootcamp course. We have lots of great things planned for that. So yay! We're so excited that you guys love the course so far. We've loved meeting you and having you be part of it. So that's all for today, and we will see you again tomorrow, same time, same place, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye everyone!